administrative appeal for AMH Holding LLC regarding the installation of a fence structure at 160 Main Street, map 5, lot 159, and setback requirements. That's what this whole meeting's about. Okay? Now, we're gonna go into a public meeting. We're not gonna adjourn on that. We'll adjourn the whole meeting later on. We're gonna go into basically a public meeting. Do you guys have any questions for these two folks? Okay.
I do.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay, first of all, are these are two, the way I understand it, there's two different lots.
That is correct.
And
Always have been.
have they been surveyed? Do you know exactly where your pin is?
I've had a preliminary survey from Mike Sear,
Okay,
and before any project commences, I've talked to him, and he's going to come set the pins, so we know exactly where the pins are.
okay.
Okay.
All right. But that's good. Now, we have a picture here
Mhm.
with some arrows. Is that where the official line is?
That's not the official line, but that is pretty much the line.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Another question is, why do you need a barrier?
Because there's been an increased use in the property next door to me to the detriment of my ability and my tenants' ability to park cars safely on our property. So both buildings were sold roughly 3 years ago.
Mhm.
They were two separate properties. They were always two separate properties. And I did the research before I bought my property to make sure I had enough parking to conform with zoning. I needed to find out what to bring my building up to standards for what I planned to do. So I came to the town before I did anything. And I'm having a hard time reading this. And when I had Mike do the preliminary survey, because I wanted to know what I was buying, I didn't feel at that time it was necessary to go through the expense of having the entire survey done in a pin set, because that was quite a big expense because there wasn't much going on next door. We had an occasional car parked on the property, that was fine. There's been increased use, and if you go by there when both businesses are running at full capacity, I am not aware of any fender benders that have happened in the parking lot, but there's been a lot of close calls. And it's time. I've got 3 girls working next door, all with brand new cars. They need to be able to park their car safely and not worry that somebody's gonna hit it. So, it's not my responsibility to provide for the neighborhood so that they can conduct business. The issue of parking and amount of space for parking was apparently addressed years ago. If you look at the 2 deeds, and I researched them back as far as I could, in the 2 current deeds, as far back as I can research, all the lot lengths are the same. If you look at maps prior to 1960, where you can't online research deeds farther back than 1960, my lot was 13 feet longer and the adjacent lot was 13 feet shorter. So somewhere back there was a transfer of a wedge of property. What that did was took from the building to the property line from 9 feet, which is not a legal driveway, to 22 feet, which falls within the state of Maine's DOT legal driveway. So the driveways meet each other, but they're 2 separate properties, and there's no easements at all.
So there is no right-of-ways there whatsoever
There's no
between the 2
right-of-ways.
lines?
And there are no legal easements. And as far as any other non-legal easement, the criteria is not there to meet the easement. So basically, at this point, I'm protecting my property. That's what I purchased to allow my businesses to do business.
So let me ask you this question, Mr. Subway. Gene, if you don't mind, I'm better off with first names. The parking spaces in front of the sidewalk, which are in front of your building, do you have any idea how much of that is state property, if at all state property, and how much of it is your property?
Not exactly. I know from talking to Mike, the surveyor,
Okay.
the state property goes 33 feet off the center line.
Well, you can't always go by the center of the road because the center of the road could actually be 5 feet one way, 5 feet the other way. You can never go by the yellow strips in the road.
Well, absolutely. So the answer to your question is no. Exactly where that falls, I don't know.
Okay, so in other words, let's say that these parking spaces that you have, 50% of that is on state line, state property. So in order for anybody to park in those, they have to access your property to do that, to park in those spaces.
That's correct.
Is there anything in writing or any written permission for the people next door to be able to access your property to use these parking spaces?
No.
There's nothing in writing. There's nothing
in writing to access my property whatsoever at any point of my property.
Okay.
No.
And right now you've been having issues with people just parking anywhere where their little heart desires, or?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I know that there's a wall here. I see this wall. I'm assuming, which I don't like to use the word assume because it's the mother of all beep ups, okay? Or it makes an ass out of you and me if you really want to look at it that way. What was the purpose of buying these particular blocks that you have there right now?
Well, the initial purpose was that those were going to be used as a fence, which by state of Maine definition, they could be used as a fence. So I went
Okay.
to a planning board meeting on the 18th of November, and MMA advised Dave that it was a structure and subject to a 10-foot setback. So at that point, rather than appealing immediately the decision, which I disagree with, I decided to rethink the project.
Okay.
Now, in the back of my building, part of my driveway is starting to collapse because there's a drop off in the back.
Okay.
So I decided rather than to use those as I intended, I'm going to use those in back of the building as a retaining wall, which they're made for, to shore up the back of my driveway so it doesn't slow. It's angling downward more severely each year. And at that point, I contacted Dave via email and asked him the question about a chain link fence.
Okay.
And he was advised by MMA that still is a structure subject to a 10-foot setback. So we started to do some research, and the zoning regulations in Madawaska do not talk to a fence at all. The state of Maine has two references to a fence. They have a definition of a fence, and they have what's called a rule against a spite fence, which is a higher than 6 feet and everything else. There's no other rules. Further research, I found that according to these quote unquote attorneys from different towns, and I printed a bunch of it, Maine doesn't have a setback for a fence. As long as your fence is on your property line, or on your property, excuse me, there is no setback. And I was informed that that there is a 10-foot setback, but there's no regulation anywhere that says that there's a 10-foot setback. And I just found out the other day that on the other side of my neighbor's property, the little blue house on the corner went through the town this past summer to put up a fence, and I was told without a variance, we're allowed to put the fence right on the property line. So with all of that, I can't file a variance against an ordinance that doesn't exist.
Well, that's something that the town, I do know for a fact, is actually going to be working on here in the very near future. But I also do know that part of the code, even with the 10-foot setbacks, on your codes that you can put a fence dead smack on the line, whether there's a setback or not, because it's not considered a structure, it's considered fencing. If it's a structure, it's a different ballgame. You got to be 10 foot from the line, but it's 10 foot for you, but it's also 10 foot for her.
Right,
See,
and that's
the line that you have right now, see, when that property was combined together, it didn't really matter about the line in the middle, okay, because it was owned by the same person, which was
Exactly.
St. John Valley Times. But in each side of the other side of the property, if they wanted to build, they had to come 10 feet in. But now that you own one property, she owns the other property, it's 10 feet in for both sides of your line, it's 10 feet in both sides of her line.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's how that ends up falling as far as construction or building a permanent structure there, which I consider a permanent structure. It's something that's going to be poured with concrete right in the ground. It's not something that you're going to move with a pickup truck,
Right.
or a payloader. You're going to need a bulldozer to move it. Okay, I consider more of a permanent structure of that, not a temporary fixture. Now, your blocks, when were you planning on moving those?
As soon as Mike can do the pinning of the property, because
Okay.
in the back, using them in the back, I intend to use them
Okay,
as a retaining wall, which is a structure under
Yeah.
Maine state law.
Mhm.
So I want to make sure I don't come within 10 feet of my back property line
okay,
when I set those. So I need to get Mike out there. And obviously,
have you contracted Mike yet?
I talked to Mike just yesterday.
Okay,
Yep,
okay.
yep.
So you're in the process of giving him his deposit that he's looking for and all that?
He's in the process of redoing the proposal
Okay,
for the work, because he had given me a full proposal 3 years ago. And like I said, I didn't move forward with anything further than the preliminary.
okay,
So he's in the process of redoing his proposal. And then with this time of the year, you're not going to get an excavator out in the back there to do what they
no,
need
the
to
ground,
do.
actually surprising how warm this year has been. It's usually not this warm, but most guys are not even coming out with the excavators or any heavy equipment like that at all right now
No,
to
they're
do
not
anything.
rolling them down the step.
Yeah.
And what is there right now is not a structure. What is there is my pile of building materials. They're stacked up so that they're taking the least amount of space. When they delivered them, they told me for less space, they could go 3 high. And even though they're 2 feet wide, I didn't want a freestanding 3 high.
How heavy are those?
4,000 pounds
Each?
each.
They're that heavy?
Yep,
I didn't realize they were that heavy.
yep.
Okay, so what we see today as
Mhm.
we drive by, that's just storage.
That's just a pile of stuff. If you look, all the top caps are stacked up 5
Okay, yeah,
high.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And according to some of the legal stuff that we got, it says, if I could, I don't know what, the fourth page, or excuse me, the fourth piece of paper here, which is, it says on top is Dave Garrett, and it says, "Good afternoon, Gary," and way at the bottom, it says, "By definition, virtually anything could be rendered as a structure."
Absolutely.
Okay, whether it's a fence, whether it's a book, a chair, a painting, okay? So anything
And
could
that
be a
includes,
structure,
and that includes a vehicle.
okay?
But, Dan, that's why we came up with the decision we did, because in our code, what we were saying, I think Mr. Salvador agrees, our code is so vague as far as the definition. We have nothing for fences.
Yes,
So it would fall, when you look at a fence, whether it's concrete or chain link, it would fall under structure.
yes,
So when you look at the section that I came out, I gave you a document that says structure. That's word for word from our code. Now, we are in the process of working that out. We know
Okay.
there is an issue there. So I
so
have-
would it be a good, no, I don't want to jump the gun here, but would it be a good idea to wait until the town does come up with a definition of what a fence is, what a structure is, so on and so forth?
Well, if I can interrupt. First of all, I received a certified letter from the town, and that's one of the reasons we're all sitting here tonight.
Mhm.
After that meeting, I said, all right, let me rethink what I'm gonna do here. And I received a letter basically telling me I had 10 days to remove my structure or that I was gonna start to be fined by the town of Madawaska. And I just want to read to you, this is the state of Maine's definition of a structure. And a structure means anything constructed or erected in a fixed location on or in the ground or attached to something having a fixed location on or in the ground, including but not limited to buildings, mobile homes, retaining walls, billboards, signs, piers, floats, and it doesn't include fishing wharves.
But
The
let me
first-
add on, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Dave, the first reason I'm here is that this letter, this violation, I don't have a structure there. I have a pile of building materials that is not affixed to the ground. It's stacked up to take the least amount of space possible because it's on my property, and now that it's plowing season, I had to put stuff where, just in case what ended up happening, the project didn't get done, that my plow guys can get through and plow my parking lot. So that's what I have, is a pile of material that's gonna be gone in the spring once everything gets underway. And currently, my neighbor's truck is there, right next to the property line, right next to the stack of blocks, which the truck, because they're there, is now safe from being hit by any vehicles that are moving around on my property. That's my whole goal, is to not have any damage from my property onto her property and no damage from her property onto mine.
Right.
That's the goal of this whole thing.
Okay, to add on to that, he received that letter for the fact that if you go back to November 18, when he initially put in the building permit,
Mhm.
it was for a wall with that concrete.
Okay.
So on that, the decision that evening was told to him that the wall would have to be at the 10-foot setback, which
Okay.
was guidance through MMA. That's why he received that letter, because we were still under that presumption that that wall was going to be the fence,
But,
which he
but
should have.
tonight, right now, there's no fence there.
No, no. But that's why he received that letter,
Okay,
you know, because on November 18, the ruling came down that from MMA, from my decision was to, he could put it would be at the 10-foot setback. Now what we're here for is the administrative appeal, which is to go, you know, he appealed my decision was right.
and
So-
the administrative
Now,
appeal is for what?
Well, he doesn't agree with the decision of the code enforcement officer.
Well, I'm here, and I'm under the assumption that I'm here, A, because of the letter, because my only option to the letter was to appeal. But to be clear, the plan that was in place on the 18th of November at the planning board to use those blocks as the fence for that area is no longer part of my plan.
Okay,
Those are
but
not gonna be used there.
That was never indicated on the
Huh?
18th. Not on the 18th. On the 18th,
Correct. On the 18th, my original plan, which we were all set to go with,
Right.
was, that's when it was stated that it needed to be a 10-foot setback.
but you never stated that's your next intention. You just left it after we left that meeting on the 18th. Nothing was there.
No,
It just
I-
left there. So we had to move on to the next step.
Right, but I did make my intentions known in an email to you
Yes, about
when
a
I
chain link fence.
questioned you about the fence.
But you never said that that was going to replace. You did ask about a fence.
Well, you're correct there. No,
So,
you're
I mean-
correct. I didn't at that point say it was gonna replace, because all of a sudden I'm getting, at that point I knew this letter was coming.
Yeah.
And I figured, you know what, we're gonna address one issue at a time.
Sure.
So,
okay, now, the letter from the town that you'd be fined so many days
mhm.
if it's not, okay. What's going on with that? Can I ask?
Well,
You
once,
know,
Well, it-
We don't know.
Have you been
Yeah.
fined? Have you
No.
been,
no,
No.
Right now, what that produced, it made us go to here. It made us do the next step because
okay,
right now, at that point, we were at a standstill.
all right,
So
Right.
my hand was forced, essentially, if you look in the code, if there is a violation and we gave the order that, yes, he could have his structure or fence, but at the setback, that was decided on the 18th. So when we left, there was no indication of a change, like he said, until he asked me about a chain link fence. But again, there was no indication at that point, hey, I will change my wall or structure to the chain link fence. So we still had the wall still at the line. So we went from the original decision from the 18th. So at that point, and I told him, I said, look, I gave him a call and he was fine. Then I said, I'll be sending out a certified later. It just gave us the steps. Whether he's going to be fined, I don't believe he will, because we took the next step, whatever decision comes from here. But we needed to go that far to get us to go in this direction.
Well, would it make sense that, okay, we finalize the possible fine and put that at risk? Because you're not putting those blocks on the
Right,
line.
I'm not violating any law
Okay,
at all.
so that should not be an issue.
No, well,
No,
the, blo-
but
the
at the
block,
time, you got to remember, at the time, we have never cleared up until today.
Okay,
That's the first time I hear that he's going to put those structures as a retaining wall in the back.
okay,
And
so
today
let's
we're on
let's
the
Well,
finalize
it's-
that this evening, and, so that
Well,
way,
it's-
that letter will be known.
it's like everything else, you could say one thing at one meeting, then a
Yeah.
month later, you go take a walk in your backyard and your backyard's falling apart. Okay, well, that's pretty much what I'm seeing here, because I've seen that happen before. I've seen it in my own properties here in town. Okay, my question I have right now is gonna be directed to Tina, what her concern is about this. Why she wants these blocks removed so badly.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think Mr. Savoy also mentioned the plowing is an issue, not just for me, but also for his tenants and himself and his customers as well. As he mentioned, his girls next door, they all have brand new vehicles. I can say the same for my girls as well. We all have brand new vehicles. The people that, go there, I don't think, nobody wants any fender benders or accidents happen. I do have signage on my building that says specific parking for people in the parking lot. The first year, not as much this past year, the first year that Mr. Savoy bought the building, we did, and well, not necessarily him, I apologize, not him, but the girls next door, when they started to start their business and whatnot, a lot of their clients would park on our side. So I said, okay, we'll fix the issue, we'll just put signs that says who the parking is for, and that's it, move on. And, it kind of kept going. I don't recall being that a major issue. Like, I've never called the cops, I've never called the towing company to have them removed. I've owned a business in the town of Madawaska going on almost 18 years now. My goal is to keep it moving forward as far as this, and the same as my two tenants that I have, and the same for the people next door, as for Mr. Savoy and the girls as well. The blocks are really a barrier, not just for me, but I also believe for him and his tenants and their clients as well. Not only if they're backing up, it's going to create a barrier. Same for me. If those blocks stay there where they are, or a fence, even if it's just a chain link fence or whatever, wood fence, whatever you want to call it at this point, because I think there's a lot of mixed feelings on the word structure and fence at this point. And I also agree that it's pretty vague. There's a lot of gray areas in there. But the problem is I've been in and out of my building, obviously, is let's say that I have a customer that is parked on the first parking spot that is next towards Main Street, with the fence or the structure going straight down that line. At this point, if another customer comes in, or if I'm going in to go work in my back space or whatever the case may be, there's not enough room for another car to pull behind that. I don't have that advantage. I also understand that it is my property. When I bought it, it was split down the middle. That's what the deed says. It is what it is, the same as with Mr. Savoy. I want both parties to succeed. Mm-hmm. That's my goal. I want us to reach an agreement. This is my first time also as hearing that he wants to now use those pretty much architectural blocks to do the retaining wall in the back, which I believe those are what they are constructed for, which I think is a great idea. I would love to avoid the fact of having any type of fencing between that. And if we can come to somewhat any type of agreement so that it doesn't hurt his girl's business, his business, and my girl's business, and also mine, that'd be great.
This type of agreement that you're looking for is not going to be determined by this board. This is an agreement that's going to have to be determined between you
Yeah.
and Mr. Jean over there.
Yeah. Now,
Okay?
the
My
oth-
biggest concern that I have is what are you doing with your snow, or what were you doing with your snow before those blocks were put there for storage space?
it gets pushed back.
How
onto-
far back?
Well, in the back
Straight
of my
back?
ponds. Yeah, straight back.
Is your boys going behind his building pushing snow in the back of his property?
I don't believe so.
Well, I caught wind that they were. They're not supposed to be doing that because you don't have
who
any
did you
permission
say,
to
my
do that.
boys? Is that,
I just caught wind. I don't know who's the one that's plowing your driveway, but.
yeah, well, I, like I said, I don't know. I don't
So are
watch
you
him plow,
paying
but
to
he's,
remove the snow out of the back of there?
I can, if it goes there, I will tell him, but he knows that it's supposed to go straight.
Okay.
I mean, right now, we've had, what, one storm?
Well,
If-
that's this year. I
if that.
mean, this is a fluke year. The last
I
time
know,
I
but you
saw, the last
also
time I,
have to understand that our lots are right next to each
I'm
other. I
very
mean,
much aware of that.
the line is here.
I know that.
Whether he's plowing straight, there's bound to be some snow coming there. And if he's plowing, Mr. Sabas, whoever, if he's doing the plowing or his guy, whoever, there's snow that's gonna come.
There's
It's
going to be.
right in the back. It's definitely not done on purpose.
Mhm.
And
Well, I'm just
Truly,
concerned
like-
because I'm concerned because I've seen times where guys will plow trucks, and I can be guilty of that myself because I do 10 driveways I got to plow, and some of my driveways are 300 feet, that one push that I got to do. And I don't have just one driveway, but I'm always cautious on where I'm putting my snow. And I'm always cautious to make sure I have either verbal or written permission from my neighbors to be able to do this. Okay, I got a neighbor with Liza funeral home.
Yep.
I have zero issues with her. Okay, she allows me to push snow on her property. I asked her. She allows me to do it. I push the snow there. I've had issues where I had tenants parking their vehicle in her parking lot. She tells me about it. I take care of it. The vehicles get moved immediately. I don't want to even hear about it. They don't have permission to be parking their vehicles there overnight. Okay, I will let you know right now, if Liza LaJoy Funeral Home has the snow moved out of her parking lot, okay, at least a tenth of that snow belongs to me. I will give Liza a $100 bill, no questions asked. If she doesn't want it, I give it to her, okay, because some of that snow belongs to me. I don't care if it costs her $350 to remove it. She's getting a $100 bill from me because I'm always there, so I know what's going on around the building. I appreciate her letting me use her property to do this. It's a matter of working with people, okay? I understand what he's doing with his retaining wall, but from what I'm hearing right now, this is a retaining wall that you want to call it, or this blocked wall that is there that is not going to permanently be there.
okay, so I'm gonna interrupt you if I can on
Mhm.
that. Again, the last meeting that we had, I was not able to attend. I was away for work. But these blocks were there for the assumption that, first of all, it was to stop water going down in his basement,
Okay?
if I recall. Now, the whole story has changed. Like, I didn't know he was gonna use that to put in the back.
No, the original
Like-
project called for taking out the driveway slightly wider than the blocks, putting crushed stone to control water.
Oh, to control water flow going down to the back, so it
Correct.
heads out to the brook in the back of the property.
Correct, because whoever paved that entire complex just didn't pitch it the right way.
No, well, yeah, but back then, I mean, things are just done differently. I had the same problem on one of my properties. I had to get Cliff Zion over there, Zion Construction, dig down my driveway 4 feet in one corner, just in one corner alone, and bring the whole thing down to pitch it and get the water away from the building. I had to do the same thing.
So in the picture here, we see some scars where the lines
That's
are.
Right,
Okay,
and that's
that-
for dig safe. Those were put down for dig safe to verify that there were no underground utilities there. So they wanted a line as to where the digging was
Okay.
gonna take place.
So this evening, we're not really talking about a structure. putting between the two lots.
I don't know anymore.
Am I right to understand?
I really don't know anymore. The assumption of me coming here tonight was to address those blocks, that fence, whatever you want to call it, that was put there way back when.
Dan,
Now, again, going back, we got up one morning and we got to work, and then I got a message from my tenant, what are these blocks? I said, I have no idea. Now, I had just spoken maybe a week or so, 2 weeks, I don't know exactly the amount of time, with Mr. Sabwa when I was redoing the roof on my property. He had come over, and never once did he ever mention that he was gonna be dropping blocks there. Now, being a commercial space owner, you would think that if you say that you wanna, you wanna make sure that the other one say, hey, you know what? This is gonna take place. I'm thinking about doing that. What do you think? But no, we got up one morning. That affects my business and it affects the girls'
Yeah,
business.
let's, if we could for a moment, talk about the roofing job. Once all of the scaffolding showed up, that was my first clue that something was going on. I went and talked to the contractor because I knew if I put a stop to it, I was gonna be hurting him. And being a nice guy he is, he was very understanding. He told me that he had told you to check with your neighbors because they were gonna cover your entire property with scaffolding, yet you never came to me, you never came to the people on the other side because that's what they told me. And now my blocks show up and you're expecting me to come talk to you about doing stuff on my property before I'm gonna do it. You can't have it both ways.
Well,
Sorry.
I'm gonna correct you on that. I did talk to Nika and I went to see her and I said, we're gonna be redoing the roof.
Nika
just to
is a
make sure."
subtenant of my tenant. She's there. They have no control over my
Yeah,
property.
you're right. You're right. I should have went to you like you should have came to me for the blocks too, I guess. So he say, she say.
That's
um,
exactly what happens. He
it's
said, she said,
just
doesn't even
not
work in the
working.
courtroom.
No.
They'll never work in front of a
so
judge.
It's what are
period.
you doing on your own property
Yeah.
is the bottom line. You could build a 30-story office building if you wanted, if the town allowed you. As long as you do it on your property, I've got no say over it. So
That's pretty much it.
now,
Okay,
let
you
me
were gonna say
clarify what you,
something?
you had said, why are we here? Keep in mind, we're here because of the initial permit, which would be, again, like we said, we just found out tonight, he's moving that, what we consider a structure, he's moving that as a retaining wall. Nothing was said until today. Today's January 14th.
Okay.
When we first spoke to him back then, on the 18th of November, it was for the wall. And we said at that time, the decision of the town, or the decision of the code enforcement officer, which is myself, with guidance from MMA Legal, was that it was a structure. And I know, and he mentioned structure a while ago, the state will always state that you're gonna go with the more stringent rule. So yes, the state says structure is this, but they're gonna go with the more stringent rule. And the code of Madawaska says structure basically, and this is word for word from the code, any production or piece of work artificially built up or composed of parts and joined together in some defined manner. So does the wall fit in that? It does. Does a chain filling fit in that description? It does. I didn't make this, but this is what I gotta follow.
Okay.
Now, we did, and and we spoke, we are fixing this. But when the decision was made, this was the rule that I had to go by.
So
Again-
what we have to do is we have to go to, with the original intent that you were gonna be putting the blocks.
Well,
like
if he was
like
gonna
the
make,
original one.
if that was the initial intent at the time was to put the blocks as a fence,
Mhm.
which the ruling at the time was to put it 10 feet at the setback in commercial zoning. Now, tonight, we find out the blocks now are gonna be used as a retaining wall. So
Well,
that
well-
changes the,
and Dave, that's
Well, it's not even the same thing anymore.
That's
Yeah.
that's not
It's
a
not even
hundred.
the
That's
same
not
thing,
100% true either, because in a phone conversation
Mhm.
prior to us changing to email,
Okay.
I told you I'll just put a fence and I'll use the blocks elsewhere. So it's
Yes.
not 100%
Yes.
true, but like I said, I'm here tonight mostly because of this letter, because what this letter from the town is accusing me of doing, I am not doing.
no, but and I agree with him to a certain extent. But you gotta remember, on the night of the 14th, that was a fence. That's when the judging came where it has to move back. That's why I was bound to that. Now, in the conversation, that's fine, but there was no permit that was brought to me to use those blocks as a wall. So I'm still under the assumption we're in the fence rule,
So,
you
and
know,
that's what we have
because if you want to build a wall,
decide
eventually you're
tonight.
gonna have to come see me for the permitting.
Absolutely.
And nothing was done either way. Now, that's why I forced it, you know, let's
Right.
move on. It was
Well-
like we were at a standstill.
Well, exactly, and I was advised by the town
Yeah.
that the only way to fight the letter
Yeah.
was via this
Yeah,
meeting.
Yes.
once he paid for
Yeah.
the going through the Board of Appeals, that stopped
Yeah.
the finding, it stopped everything until it
Yeah,
hit the Board of
and
Appeals.
and Mark's exactly right, and this is exactly what I wanted. It just took that to get there.
Yeah.
When you look at the code of what my next procedure was, I had done what I was supposed to do.
Right, and I,
Unfortunately, you get a letter that tells you, hey, you're gonna be threatening it, you know, I'm sorry.
yeah, and
we
it's,
spoke.
you know, it just, the letter was a little unclear, and like I said, I was told that coming here,
So right
It-
now,
It
when you,
moves, it helps us move forward.
absolutely.
so right now, these blocks that you have, you're planning on putting that behind your building to repair your driveway in the back.
Correct.
So no matter what, you're gonna have to get your land surveyed to do that, to know where your back line is at.
Correct.
Okay, I don't go with pins that are sticking above the ground. I will never accept a pin like that nature. I'll never accept a pin that's a pile of rocks. I will never do that. The only type of pin that I will accept is a pin that's in the ground that's sticking out, but it's surrounded in concrete because you can't move it or that easily. Or it's a pin or it's a piece of rebar that's 4 feet long that's driven in the ground with a little orange cap on it. So that is my biggest recommendation to you before you do anything in moving these back there on your property in the back of your driveway, is make sure that you have your line surveyed, your property surveyed, so you know exactly where you're at. That's my biggest suggestion to you. It's just same as me. I will never build anything, even on my property, unless it's been surveyed.
Oh,
Okay.
absolutely,
That's a must.
and after the November meeting, we're coming into winter, it's snowing, things are freezing, guys are not working outdoors. I'm like, all right, we got time
Okay,
to look at what the project is gonna be, because
Okay.
I wanna put the block wall, the retaining wall in the back as far back as I can.
Mhm.
But not within that 10 feet, so that's why when.
well, the back, yeah, you're talking your sideline variance or your back line
back
variance?
line.
Your back line, I don't know. Is that still 10 feet on the back side of that?
Yeah, all
Yeah.
the way
Yeah,
around. is 10
commercial,
feet.
it's 10.
Yeah,
10
but
feet
that,
from the rear
but that's on your back line. Who's on the other side of your back property?
That's property owned by the mill,
Twin
an
Rivers.
unfinished lot back there
Yeah.
that's kind of landlocked.
Yeah, because that's something that can go to the Board of Appeals again, you can actually take that, if it passes here and we don't have any complaints from Twin Rivers, and if you're not affecting their property, that you can actually go right up to the line. Because it's a retaining wall. It's to hold something there,
Right.
okay? If it's done properly, it's not gonna affect Twin Rivers property, and it will not affect yours.
Right.
So it actually gives you more room. It's not a structure like a house that you're trying to build.
Right.
Okay, you can actually, so a lot of that kind of stuff, we will actually allow to go all the way to the line. Because you're going to the line to hold up your line is what you're doing.
Right.
Okay, which, that I don't foresee a problem with that, and I'm pretty sure the rest of the board wouldn't have a problem with that. It's not like you're going there and you're gonna butcher somebody's property. You're actually doing them a favor because you're holding up their land too.
Right.
And you're spending the money to do it. Okay, especially if you go there and you decide you're gonna put a fence on top of it to make sure that nobody falls in.
Right.
Especially if you're lower than, if the driveway is lower than the rest, I recommend putting a fence up there if the property's higher. Okay,
Yeah, just wanted to come in with a variance, 10-foot variance. And
Certainly.
How far from the sidewalk is the edge? Would the edge of the
You mean from the road?
road out here?
You ask a very good question, and I'm gonna let wherever that gentleman says I can go, that's where I'm gonna go.
Is it 5 feet from the telephone pole line inside?
we don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know because the thing is, the state of Maine owns all main highways like this, like Route 1, Route 2, it's 66 feet total width across the road. That's for a 4-lane highway plus a breakdown lane on each side.
Because the reason I'm asking is I went to see Drew once for construction on my own property.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he told me. It needs to be above 400 square feet and it needs to be 5 feet inside the telephone pole line,
Where is that?
at my place. my
Where's your
own.
old property?
It's in St. David, but it was more than that. I'm 25 feet in. It's for a slash for a garage. But-
Where's that, on Route 1?
Nope, nope.
Okay, it's a different story, because Route 1 is different. You're talking like Old Post Office Road, or you're talking Boyer
Yeah.
Road, that's, if the town designates that Boyer Road, they own 50 feet, it's 50 feet. That's what they have, and then you got your setbacks after your 50 foot. So if it's 10 feet setbacks, that's where you can go. You went 25 feet, you're fine.
No, but I could have gone up to 5, is what I'm saying.
Right, well, whatever the setbacks were at the time when Andrew was there. So if you, let's say Boyer Road, the town owns 50 feet of Boyer Road, okay? But we're only using 30, let's say we're using 40 feet of it. So that means there's 5 more feet on each side that's not even paved. But you're talking 5 more feet after that. You see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah,
it's-
as long
it's-
as there's enough space for the town buggy to push the snow. I mean,
That's it. That's all it
that's all
is.
that matters.
But over here with their scenario that they're having is that we have one landowner, we have another landowner. Both landowners have a 10-foot setback from the line. The line that was there between his lot and her lot was combined together at one time. It was owned by the same people.
Yeah, but it
There
doesn't
was
make
no
sense
right of
to
way.
make 2 walls at 10, you know what I mean?
No.
Well, the problem is it goes 10-foot setbacks on both sides. So in other words, make it imaginary. It's a right of way, but not a right of way. The bottom line is you can't even park on it. It kind of causes issues because it's a 10-foot setback. I consider a vehicle that is parked there with nobody in it, keys in their pocket, I can't walk through it.
Yeah, but the
I
issue
consider
is
that
there's
a
conflict in
structure.
between employees.
What's
See, so
that?
in between both businesses. So at that point, the property line would need to be physical to stop any conflict.
Well,
know what I mean?
I'd rather not see a fence go there at all. I'd rather just leave the blocks there for the rest of the winter so he can do his thing next spring, move him in the back. He says he's gonna move him, then he moves him in the spring or whenever he's doing his job back there, okay? Because right now to go there and move 4,000-pound blocks, where in the hell are you gonna put them? That's a good question. You can't put it out in the middle of Route 1, that ain't gonna fly, okay? So where do you put these blocks? Okay, the only scenario where it's causing an issue and the blocks are set back far enough that you can still drive around this way, where the issue is going to be if you try backing up a tractor trailer on the side. But a tractor trailer only needs 9 feet, 10 feet. That's all he needs. You got 30 some odd feet there between where the walls are to the building. Okay, I used to be a truck driver. I drove for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
I know how wide a truck is. Okay, if the truck driver does it right, knows how to drive, he'll be able to back it in the hole to unload a truck. Okay, but where are you going to put a dozen 4,000-pound blocks where it's not going to be in anybody's way? Okay, he originally planned to use it as a retaining wall till that's what this thing, his original permit started for. Okay, then he told him that he can't do that, so now he changed his mind. Okay, we're going to put up a fence instead. Okay, now he goes out in the backyard in the middle of December. It's like, oh my God, my property's falling apart back here. Okay, I've got a good place to put that, and I can put a fence up over there instead. I don't want to see a fence there. I'd rather have neighbor, sit down together, hatch it out, talk it over. Because if the fence goes there, okay, with the new codes that's going to be coming out, it's going right to the state line. If the state line's at the sidewalk, if that's where it happens to be, no one's going through. And there's a fence going all the way to the back. That, I don't want to see that.
Yeah, but it becomes an insurance issue if there's an accident.
It doesn't matter. He's protecting his property. It's his land. There's no right of way there. The only way anybody can use, it's like me. I'm going to go to the Key Bank building, load up my dump truck full of snow. I'm going to go to your house and dump it in your driveway. How fast do you think that's going to fly? Or how far do you think that's going to
Yeah,
go?
but you have no proof that that's what's going on. Maybe it's just a driver trying to save some time when actually,
I don't know.
if he has 20 other to do.
It's like
You
everything.
know what I mean?
It's
He's
like
just
with
doing
me.
it to
I
save
have
some time when he could actually push it where it needs to be. That's just the driver there. That's
Well, the driver who's doing the snow or who's ever delivering needs to have a talk to. Okay, you got to talk to these people. You can't go in this guy's driveway. You can't use his driveway, park a semi-truck in front of his building for 3 hours while you're unloading it. Can't do that. It's not your land,
That's right.
okay? And there is no right of way there. It's period. It's not your property. It belongs to somebody else. Somebody else is paying the taxes on that. Like I said, it's your property. You wouldn't like it if I went to your place and dropped a bunch of snow in your driveway. I know Dan wouldn't.
Well,
He'd come after me with a shotgun.
No, okay,
Okay, let's stay on track.
I think, thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, I think we should stay on track
Yep.
and go with this administrative appeal.
Mhm.
And, you know, keeping in mind that, okay, well, there's no fence here tonight, okay? But we have to act on the first
The first issue.
project.
Yes.
Okay, back in November.
how about a line of trees? A line of cedar tree, cedar.
Doesn't matter what type of line, it's hurting both businesses.
It's hurting both. It is hurting
It's
both.
hurting both business. I don't
right
care if you
now-
put a fishing line in the middle. I mean, we're so close together that,
Right.
and he's right, I believe it's you that said, used to be combined property when St. John Valley Times owned it, so there was no issue. Now there is. And I mean,
And
I
you're,
think
you're
common
against,
sense is like, how am I supposed to run my business if I can't even go to my loading station to load my truck or park my cars or the customers? And same with him. I mean, there's some customers of theirs that, turn and come on my line. I don't give a crap. I mean,
That's the whole
just
point.
be
of saying-
careful of not hitting anybody or, same thing, or not damaging the car. That's all I want. And the roofing issue, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
it's temporary. I had to do you're gonna
Well,
have
so-
to redo
so
the
am I
roof too,
blessed.
so.
Exactly.
Same
And-
thing. I
and-
know, but Gene, you have to understand, I was not aware that now you're changing the whole scenario. Now you're
Well-
putting it in the back.
Well, now, but
It's
yeah, but
fine.
it doesn't matter.
It's fine.
It doesn't
Okay,
matter.
okay,
side or
guys,
back.
guys,
All right.
guys. Okay, you
Let's
guys
stay
can.
focused, guys.
You guys can hatch these two out between yourselves at coffee at McDonald's or Tim Hortons or whatever. I'm not sure which way you're gonna want, what you're thinking about, Dan. So what's your opinion right now?
Well, my opinion is that we have to go ahead and talk about as if he's putting the blocks all the way through the line, and, we have to go with the 10-foot setback.
Right now, the blocks aren't all the way to the line.
No,
But-
but the original request,
Right.
okay, was to put blocks to be used as a barrier or a fence or whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
okay? And to do that, then it should be 10 feet away from the line. Okay, he's got lots of property here, okay? So I can't see why a variance would be given.
Well, we're really not going to
Okay.
do, I don't think we have to do a variance as far as him leaving it there for the time being.
No,
especially if he's
that's
gonna
not what I'm
move it.
saying. I'm saying, okay, what we have to, as far as I know, maybe I'm wrong,
Well,
okay? But as far as I know, tonight, we have to decide, okay, is it legal to put a bunch of barriers there? Okay? And yes, we're thinking, well, he's not doing that anymore, but that's okay. But we still have to decide on the original permit.
The original request.
Okay.
Exactly.
So, and that's what our job is, okay? Now, what he does afterwards, that's a whole new ball of wax.
Okay,
That's how I'm thinking.
okay.
Paul?
But unfortunately, it changed.
Well,
and
we
that's fine,
can't
but
take
that's
that
not
into
the-
consideration.
That's not, he can change it, that's fine, but he never told us. He did say he's thinking about changing with the chain link fence, but there was no permit came in to say, okay, I'm gonna use these blocks for the retaining wall. We still had this, we were still under the assumption, just like you said, once you start assuming.
Right.
We had a conversation, but
So what we have to work with is the original,
With the original
Permit.
permit.
Yeah.
But now the subject just changed, and I'm always gonna fall back on that because the subject changed, because I've seen things change with me so many times it ain't funny.
well,
but we can't do
No.
that.
Are you,
so
are
let's just
you
stay with the facts.
consensual of the fence yourself? Or
Describe consensual,
if you want the fence to be there?
absolutely not. I mean, I'm okay if he needs to leave what he has there till the spring. I completely agree to find somebody to move that stuff right now. It is winter. And if he wants to use it in the back, I'm fine with that, but I don't want any type of fencing whatsoever. I don't care if it's a chain link fence or whatever. I don't think there should be any
I
fences
think
between our,
if she would be
at all.
consensual, then it would make any sense to put a fence 10 foot from his line. They can go right on the line. if
Well,
both
she's,
proprietors
she actually just said what I was thinking, because that was a question I was gonna ask her. If it was all right for him to leave the bricks there until he can move him in the back when his construction starts going.
I'm
And
perfectly
she
fine with
just
that.
said it,
I'm perfectly fine with that.
Okay,
okay? So
so
that,
it's temporary until spring.
it's temporary, well, spring is May, okay?
Yeah, it's a
But
couple
construction probably over there won't happen until June or July. Okay, it depends what the construction guys are, it depends how fast they can get in there.
So
You
can the
only have a
town-
handful of construction guys.
Can the town give him a permit, a certain amount of time for
Yeah.
him to leave?
No, we can, if he's saying to sit there, if you guys allow him to keep it there until the spring, that's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but when do you think
You
you
gotta
can
remember,
get him in the
that
back?
was only sent because we
As
thought,
soon as I can get with Alan and Mike, as soon as they can get their work done, like right now, Mike told me it doesn't make any sense for him to attempt to get down in the back to do
Okay.
that.
Well, Mike can take care of all the preliminaries and all the back paperwork and all that, so when he's ready to go there, he'll go there and he'll do that, he can do that within 6-7 hours, he's done.
Right.
He's out of, he'll have the pins in the ground, orange caps on it, it's all over.
Right, and as
Okay.
soon as that's done, I can finalize what exactly that plan is going to be.
Right?
And then it's a
Well,
matter of getting the excavator. Well, it's a matter of depth.
Yeah, but that's not the topic
yeah,
right now.
now we're going off. and-
Okay.
I know what the topic is, but the thing is, like again, Dan, it just changed. Because now Tina just said she didn't have a problem with it. That changes this. So we can take.
Well, no.
no,
It
no,
doesn't,
no.
it
No, no,
doesn't
no.
change
Stick-
this. I came here tonight. Let me get this straight. I came here tonight going on the first meeting that we had and why I thought we were here tonight. I was not aware of the changes.
and
I'm
that's-
not gonna make him move that tomorrow. I'm fine with it staying there until the spring, whenever he can get the contractors, whoever it is, to move it. I don't want to get on that subject. Whatever he does with these blocks
Mhm.
after the fact and what he does on his property, it's his property. I
Right.
don't have any say in that unless it pertains to me and it affects my business. At this point, wherever he wants to put those blocks in the back, it's fine. I just don't want a fence in between our property lines. That's all I care about. I want
Yeah, but
this
that,
to be, you know?
ultimately in the end, okay, unless you sit down with Mr. Jean and you guys hatch this out, okay, there could end up being a fence between the two lines, whether it's a chain link fence or not,
there could be.
okay? But that's up to you and up to him to sit down and talk it over. That's the issue.
That's
You
the
have
same
to-
discussion we
you-
had at the last meeting.
You have
That's
to
right,
deal
and
with
nothing
two different
happened.
landowners. You're dealing with two different landowners. Okay, the same scenario with me
Yeah.
with all the neighbors that I have, and I got a lot of them.
Okay, so can we move
Yeah,
on,
Let's go
on the
ahead.
deal for
Yeah.
this evening?
Yeah.
Okay, can I make a motion?
You want to make a motion? Go right ahead.
Make a motion, okay? And as far as I know, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong,
I-
Mr. Chairman,
If we make,
but
hold on, I
the
do have,
motion,
oh, sorry. You can make your motion. I do have a letter from concerned citizens I gotta
Okay.
read. So I don't know if you want that after or.
No, we're gonna do that first, so I'll let you read that out.
Say
if you
that.
don't mind, sir.
Okay. And this would be for the, for community, for the public concerns. They were told to, they were instructed to send me an email by noon today. I have one letter that I received.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just a point of clarification on the paperwork for the public hearing. It's to consider an administrative appeal regarding the installation of a fence structure at 160. So yeah, just to get the terminology right, it's just a fence is what's stated in here, which is what I was talking about. We kind of got off on a different,
yeah,
so it's for a fence, it's not necessarily that it's a block fence or a chain link fence.
yeah,
Right.
either way. The way, and you're right, Gene. in our ordinance, again, and I'll bring it up again, the fence is gonna fall under structure, so we're still tied to that, bound by the rule that I decided with 10 foot. So that's what we're gonna decide tonight. Like you said, you plan to, where we sent the letter was because of the concrete blocks. And now we know that you have a different plan, so that takes care of that part. So we moved on to that. So the only thing that we're gonna do now is just out of concern, if they wanna hear this, I have to read it because we did offer it. I'm gonna read it to the board, and then they can make their decision.
Yeah.
from there.
Can
And
we
I'm fine.
take a,
Yes,
a
Ms.
2-minute break?
Yes,
Okay.
Yep.
We take a 2-minute break?
yes.
Yeah.
Are you on?
Yeah.
Miss Sabla?
Okay. Just wanted to make a statement that, we bought this property because it had a nice large parking lot, knowing that hopefully that business would increase as the years go on. And right now, the parking lot is not working for us, okay? So our property is not working for us the way it should be working for us. The parking lot is an issue every day. We're talking about it, and it's like, I'm really getting tired of talking about a parking lot. So what we need to do is reconfigure our parking to make it work for us. And, you know, putting the fence there would allow us to change our parking spots from going towards the building to along the side, because we also have a driveway that we can drive around the back of the building and out. So if we changed our parking spots along the far side of the building, you know, we could have cars parked perpendicular to the road, okay? We could have like 3-4 spots for our tenants to park there, and we could still get around the building. So it would, our parking lot would work better for us, because then our tenants wouldn't be parking in the front spots where the customer parking is.
Well,
Okay?
your tenants are parking on the side of your building.
So they are
They
right
are
now, and it's
currently.
blocking
Yeah,
our
but
ability to go
even
around.
if you say they park perpendicular to the main road, it would be the same as how our clients at my building park. Now, that being said, it doesn't leave enough space for another car to go behind, and I highly doubt the first one in the front to be able to go if there's cars parked there. I don't think they're gonna make it on, now having gone out and measure, but from the look of it, if you look at the pictures and the lot map, I don't think there's enough space for that.
No.
Because even with where those blocks are right now, there's no way, you can't even back out of there. So even if it
Right,
would
we-
just be a fence, now it fixes your issue, but what
Right.
does that do to me? Now,
Right.
I want to get straight to the point. I'm here to fix this, what we came here for, and I want to get this over with. That's what we need to decide on tonight, and I think that's what should be done.
That's
Okay,
exactly
so-
it, but we're waiting
Okay,
on him to read.
I got one letter from the public. Dear board members, we write to you today as concerned business owners in the town of Madawaska. It is our understanding that Mr. Gene Savoy is seeking an administrative appeal in the matter regarding his denied permit for construction of a cement wall structure on the property line between his property and the property of our landlord, Tina Boucher. Our business has been operating for over 15 years here in Madawaska, and Mr. Savoy's attempt to construct the structure on the property line illegally will result in our business having no valuable access for parking and service our clients. While we could provide you with a myriad of information pertaining to this impact to our businesses and other clients and our clients, we will indeed focus only on the merits of the application and the rules established in the Land Use Development Code for the town of Madawaska, which is legally adopted ordinance by the people of Madawaska and must be enforced by the town, its employees, and appointed elected board members. We have enclosed those sections of the ordinance in bold below for ease of reference. And then they reference section 5, appeal letter B, powers and duties. Number 3, variance appeals, to hear and decide by majority vote of those present and voting upon appeal. In specific cases, such variance will not contrary to the public interest. Provisions of this code would result in unnecessary hardship. This variance would most certainly result in the unnecessary hardship of the 3 business owners affected by the proposed structure, as well as hundreds of town citizens who are our clientele. There is no on-street parking anywhere in the vicinity of this location, and the construct of any parking lot would require significant cost to the property owner and unfeasible given the location of said property. C, conditions. 1, in hearing appeals under this section, the board shall determine: A, that the use will prevent the orderly and reasonable use of the adjacent properties or properties or of properties in adjacent as districts. Clearly, the very first requirement that the Board of Appeals shall determine cannot be met. The construction of the proposed structure would eliminate all access to parking along building owned by Ms. Boucher. There would not be enough room for vehicles to pull into the common areas driveway and park on Mrs. Boucher's property. The reasonable use of her property would no longer exist. C, the safety and health and welfare of the town will be adversely affected by the proposed use of this location. Many of our services are provided to elderly citizens of Madawaska. We treat people for a variety of health issues, including beauty services. Eliminating the ability for our customers to park closely to our building is a direct threat to their health and welfare. We service people with severe back and muscle pain, as well as people with arthritis and poor circulation. 2, in making such determination, the Board of Appeals shall also give consideration, among other things, to C, the effect that the location of the proposed use may have upon the congestion and undue increase of vehicle traffic congestion on public streets or highways, and H, to the necessary for paved off-street parking. Madawaska has a parking problem throughout the community. Eliminating the ability for the public to park on Mrs. Boucher's property will further expand this problem. The structure that is proposed completely eliminates the paved off-street parking available on Ms. Boucher's property and is counterintuitive of the intent of the purpose of the Madawaska Land Use Code. N, whether the proposed use will provide for adequate pedestrian circulation. The structure forces people to have to park further away from the building and in some cases across the street. Pedestrian traffic is already a concern in Madawaska due to poor lighting and putting more people, especially an elderly and more valuable citizen, in a position to have to cross streets along busy streets such as Main Street in the location where there is no on-street parking, making for inadequate pedestrian circulation. Again, this is counterproductive to the intent and purpose of the Madawaska Land Use Code as adopted by the citizens of Madawaska. In closing, we respect Mr. Savoy has a right to construct his structure on his property within the rules established by the code. While a structure built between abutters in a residential or rural farm zoning might make sense directly on the property line, these properties are along US Route 1 Main Street in a commercial zone. There is a reason the code spells out 10-foot setback from the property line, especially on the property that has a common driveway entrance shared by both landowners. This case is perfect example why the town has a land use code and why we must be followed. We respectfully ask the Board of Appeals to deny the appeal and uphold the rightful decision of the town's code enforcement officer. Thank you for your time and your service to our community and to the residents and businesses owners. Sincerely, Jennifer Dufour, Gentle Touch, Elise Lowe, owner Lo and Behold.
Statement to that letter and ask the question.
Sure.
First of all, that property has a 22-foot curb cut, which by DOT standards is a legal curb cut. And my question is, can someone show me in the code where for the betterment of the town, it is proper to trespass on somebody else's property in order to better your property?
There is nothing like that in the code.
Exactly.
There's nothing like that in the code because she's paying taxes there, you're paying taxes there.
Absolutely.
Okay, no matter what, whether a fence is erected or not is irrelevant. Okay, what's relevant is communication between two neighbors to make things happen. Without the communication, this whole thing is gonna fizzle out to nothing. There's nothing that the board, and I agree with this girl was saying over here, whoever wrote this, about shared for both landowners, but the bottom line is, that's not state property. Your entrance to your place is not state property. If that was state property, we couldn't do nothing. That's a right of way.
Exactly.
But we don't know where the lines are. We have no idea. I can't tell you what to do with your property. No one can. It's your place. The only one that can tell you what's going to happen with your property is the federal government. That's the only one. That's the only one that can trump you on your land. If the government wants to buy your land on an eminent domain, they will do it whether you like it or not. If they want to tear down all those houses over there and build a prison, that's exactly what they're going to do. We can't stop them.
Yep.
They're going to take it all by eminent domain. The only
Okay.
one that can trump you is the federal
All right,
government.
let's stay focused.
I'm aware of that.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
And as maybe you don't know, but motions have to be stated positively.
Mhm.
Okay. We're here tonight for Article 4 to consider administrative appeals by AMS Holding LLC regarding the installation of a fence structure at 160 Main Street, map 4, lot 159, and setback requirements. Okay, so that is the motion that I make to give an administrative appeal to AMS Holdings LLC regarding the installation of a fence structure at 160 Main Street, map 5, lot 159, and setback, and follow the setback requirements.
Can I ask you a question before you finish your motion?
Yes,
You're talking specifically to the concrete blocks as the fence, is that correct?
that is correct.
Okay. Now,
I
If-
would not make that kind of motion, Dan.
Well, I see where
I
see where
see where
Dan's
Dan's
going.
coming from on this one here, but that's a motion that I wouldn't go to. I mean,
But-
you're in the middle of
Well,
winter.
that's why we're here for.
I know that.
well, let me-
Let Mr. Savage.
one more question. So, if it's decided that a chain link fence is to go in, do I have to go through this process again, or is my variance for a chain link fence being denied by this?
Right now, the chain link fence still stands at the 10-foot setback.
Mhm.
Right now, according to our code structure, and the chain link fence still falls under the structure. Now, we are working that issue.
Right.
Because we're
I
being
got a
very-
pile of research that says that statement's absolutely wrong.
It's a statement that we were guided by MMA Legal. That's a statement from our code. I know that you referenced the state code, but the state's always going to come back and say which one is more stringent. And if
Right, but there is none at the Madawaska level. That's the point I'm trying to make. There
What
is no
what
code.
happens is that we end up falling in the state level. That's what ends up happening.
Right, and at the state level, there is no code, and based on the legal advice that people are giving throughout the state of Maine does not have a setback for fences, and that's why I just want to make sure this whole thing is clear, that we're talking about blocks only and not a chain link fence.
right now, under our code, I would consider both structures. At this point, at the way our code is written.
I would
If you read,
highly disagree with you, Dave, especially as to what the history is, as to what's going on within town,
I think right now,
as recent as this
I think
summer.
what it comes down to.
when you look from our
is,
code, let me just explain, direct from our code structure. Any production or piece of work artificially built up or composed of parts and joined together in same defined manner. So chain link fence, does it fit into that category?
Oh, it absolutely does, but what I'm saying is.
But that's what we're
The
buying.
town of Madawaska hasn't used a fence as a structure. That's the legal problem that you have right now, is it hasn't been used, and people are allowed to put fences on the property line. It happens all the time in the commercial zone, the residential zones, all the zones.
When I took on this job as code enforcement officer, first thing they tell me, be careful on what people say, what was done before, what was done before. Right now, I read the codes that it is today, and that's how the code reads today. And that's, to be fair, from now on, until we change that code, every time I will see that, I have to maintain construction to what I read.
And that's
So what it comes down to is, with the code that we have today, you basically, you have two options. With the consent of your neighbor, you could build a fence right in the smack middle. Without her consent, you'd have to go 10 feet inside your land. Basically, that's what,
Yeah,
the
and
choice you have,
disagree with
unless
that
you wait till
assessment.
we change the code,
No.
but as of today,
Right.
that's what the code
Now-
is.
Right, and I'm not doing anything today, obviously, because it's winter time, but I'm just making sure that we're not closing off one by closing off another with this.
The intent is not, the intent is to act with the building blocks. Now, if maybe I'm wrong, but if next week, if you come and ask to put a chain link fence, okay, according to our code, it'll still be 10 foot away from the line, according to our code. Now, I believe that you've got certain rights, okay, after this evening, whatever happens, and you have certain rights too, to make an appeal, to get lawyers involved, so on and so forth. That's your prerogative, okay? But as far as what we talked about this evening, okay, and as far as the permit is to put those blocks.
Right.
Okay. Now, you could put those blocks, but it would have to be a 10-foot.
Right, that I
from-
understand.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so that's what
Unless
we're
they're
talking about this
temporary.
evening.
Okay,
And,
now,
and,
let's
and if they're
stop,
temporary.
let's stop and look at it. The blocks or this permit was originally designed for the entire length of the property.
Yep.
Okay, but again, we still don't know where the property line is, and it did not materialize that way, so they only came out 6 in instead of 12
Yeah,
out. Okay, so, and now that the story's changing and the blocks are gonna be utilized someplace else, that kind of changes the picture a bit. Personally, I would make a motion that Mr. Savoy would have until June 1st to remove the blocks from that location, at least 10 feet from the line. Is personally what I would go with. Okay, because this is gonna give time for him to get Mike
Consent.
Sear in there to do the land surveying, put the pins in the ground. And it will also give him time to find out what he's gonna do in the backyard and where to move the blocks to. Because right now, if you make a motion that he has to follow what he's got here in writing, that means tomorrow he's gotta go move his block 10 feet from
No,
the
no,
line.
No,
no,
no.
that's not what he's
No,
asking.
no. The motion has to be positive,
Okay,
okay? And then we vote. Okay?
okay,
So the motion has to be positive, okay? And the way I understand it, okay, is to consider the administrative appeal, so on and so forth, okay? But he still has to find that 10-foot,
yeah, we don't know where it
Okay.
is.
so we don't know what it is.
Unless in the long run, his neighbor decides to, to consent with the fence
Well-
permanently staying there.
Before we look too deep now, let's keep in mind, he did say he wants to change the use of the retaining wall. He's gonna move it to retaining wall, and he did say that if he can keep it there until construction crew can go out there. The abutter said she was fine with that, so that would alleviate that problem right there.
Mhm.
Okay, now that changes the initial request from the permit. Now he's asking for the chain link fence. Right now, the decision would still remain the same until code is changed, and we are working that issue.
Yes, but we still have to close this, so
Yes.
that way he doesn't have
Correct.
that threatening letter. to-
Yes, no, you're
Okay.
right. Yep.
So we have to close this.
Yeah.
Okay, this evening.
That's
Now, what
fine.
happens next week, next month, next spring, that's brand new,
That's it.
okay? It's not setting a precedent.
Okay, go ahead with your motion that you wanted to say your motion again. I want to hear that again. Please.
Okay. If you look at Article 4,
Yeah.
that's why we're here,
Mhm.
okay? So, positive is I make a motion that we grant the AMS Holding LLC, okay, at a positive administrative appeal regarding installation of the fence structure at 160 Main Street, map 5, lot 159, and setback requirements. Okay, the setback requirements are still there.
So are you granting him to leave them where they're at? Or
Yes.
you granting him to move it over the 10 feet?
We're granting him to move, if he wants to do it, it has to be 10 foot
If you want
with,
choose
with the setback.
with the 10-foot setback,
Yes.
okay?
It
Now,
says,
is
and
he-
setback requirements. And the setback requirements, as the code is today, is 10 feet.
right, so.
But the
I
next
like-
door
I-
business is agrees to leave for the blocks to stay there
That's way
temporarily.
back there, yes. Okay, that has nothing to do, where it's stored is not part of this decision here this evening.
But if it's temporary, I mean, it's
No.
right in the middle
Well,
of
the
the
thing,
line
the thing,
until
the thing
June.
is sometimes when you try to turn this into a legal determination, it gets other people confused. Sometimes when you put it in simple English, straightforward English, it's a lot easier to understand for overall. Okay, that's where I was questioning Dan on the motion that he was doing.
Yeah.
My concern is I just don't want to have Mr. Salvador forced to move it to the 10-foot setbacks, not right now. We don't know where the line is. That's my concern. I have no clue what it is. He might be 8 feet from his line. We don't know that. We don't have a clue where he's at. He might be right on the line. He might be on her property. We don't know. If somebody moved that pin in the back, we don't have a clue.
Okay, but right now, okay, it's all right for Ms. Boucher stated that the blocks where they're at right now, there's no issue with that.
Okay.
Okay, that's just storage.
Mhm.
That's not making the fence.
Correct. Right.
Okay, that's
right.
the way I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, but we still have to answer, okay, about making that fence.
Right.
And when we make a motion, it has to be positive,
That's fine.
and then we vote on it.
That's fine.
So that's what I'm trying to say. right
But
now.
from what I can see, the fence is already, like the back part's already made, right?
No, that's just the pile of material.
Oh, that's
sitting
just the
there.
pile of material.
Yes.
No,
okay.
Paul, that blocks was supposed to be the whole length of the property.
Okay, I thought that was
And
like
that's,
on the
and,
line.
and what happened is that he got the blocks and then after that, he put in the permits while the blocks
Yeah.
were there. And
Yeah.
this is what ended up happening, but this went to the planning board, says, you can't do that. You gotta be 10 feet from the line. And this is where the subject came in with the 10-foot variance for any type of fencing, which kind of changed the whole picture. Okay, because of what's in our code.
Okay,
Okay, and the way the code is written. Because it falls under structure is what ends up falling, Even though they can be moved, it still falls under structure. Okay, so go ahead with your, sorry about your interruption on your motion.
Well, that's fine.
Go ahead and go ahead and call out your motion again. If you'd like to change some wording to it, go right ahead.
Okay. I make motion that we grant Mr. Savoy and his group the administrative appeal installing a fence structure at 160 Main Street, map 5, lot 159, and setback requirements. Okay, so that's a positive motion.
until you have a date.
And then now we vote. Or any discussion? Or, first of all, does anybody second my motion?
I have a question.
Yes,
When you say that, are you giving him permission to go ahead and keep moving forward with that structure? Or
yes,
Yes.
yes, it has
If
to be
it's 10
positive.
feet away from the
if it's
property.
10 feet away from the, like it has to have the
That's
setback
right.
of 10 feet?
That's right.
I'm more in tune of just allowing him to leave the blocks here for the time being until springtime.
Yes,
Because
but
it's
we're
gonna end
not-
up, it's gonna end up falling into another fence later if that's what ends up happening.
But we're not
What-
answering.
Yeah.
He
Listen to the
wants a
appeal.
fence there permanent.
Yeah. Right
That's-
now, what Dan wants to do is rule on the ruling that we had with the variance at the time, then after that, you can say, okay, we're gonna allow him to keep them there because now it's no longer a fence for the whole.
Okay, so you want to make this motion so I can come back and make another motion against your motion?
No. Well, go ahead, Dan.
I second your motion, Dan.
Any discussion?
Only discussion that I would like to throw into it or add to your motion is that he's allowed to leave that wall there until springtime when he can properly move
It's
it.
not considered a wall, it's considered storage.
Storage.
Now, yeah, now we're
If you
gonna
wanna-
change it to storage.
Okay.
This is where you can say, yes, do you
So-
want 'em-
So it would be considered now as storage.
Does somebody else second
second
that
that.
part of that motion?
I second that.
You second that. Do we all approve? Raise your hand if we all approve to it.
Okay. Are we on live?
Yeah,
Can
we are
just-
live
yeah.
TV.
Yeah,
here.
can we
If he
take a
wants it-
break here just to have some discussion?
I think if he wants it longer, he should have the right probably to get another appeal after.
Well, we can
June
extend
1st.
it. I mean, I'm sure, right now you're giving him till how long to have the blocks in
I'm gonna,
storage?
That
I'm
wasn't-
gonna ask for May 1st on that because my season starts in May. So, it's a little bit difficult to use the truck back and forth. So if it's okay with Mr. Savoy, if we can do May 1st. If there's any issues that he can't get anyone, then he can discuss with me and then we can,
Have another appeal or something.
well, not necessarily.
Well, they can work it
appeal,
out
but we
amongst
can-
each
we
other.
can-
Oh,
We can work
we
it
hope
out, but I would
This
I
will
would
all
like
be worked
May
out amongst
1st,
each other.
beginning of May if possible.
But
Okay, we'll
It's-
agree with that.
it's up to you.
Well, I don't know if that, I don't know if that's gonna be possible.
Well, that's
Um,
what I said. If it's not possible and you can't get the contractors and whatnot, but I would highly appreciate if you could at least check. And if it's not possible, then we
well,
can
if you put
further
it, if you put it,
discuss and then, you
Why don't
know,
we go in
take care of
between
it.
May 15th?
well, I was gonna say, if you put in May, as long as you put in the fact that due to weather, if I need a
Yeah.
30-day extension,
Yeah.
it's an automatic.
And I don't
Then-
think as it being temporary, I don't think we'd have to go back to a Board of Appeals to keep asking for an extension. If the code enforcement officer is informed of what's going on, I think that should satisfy.
As long as the extension
We
is in
know.
writing. yeah.
Right, because that's why we had to do where we're at. The
As
code
long-
enforcement officer didn't know what was going on. There was a ruling made on the 14th and everything was just sitting. I don't want the same situation to happen. We're gonna come up with a determination that, yes, the setbacks are gonna remain to what was given, but we're gonna give him the opportunity to store his blocks.
Where they're
There.
at.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, if you give him a certain day, that's fine. I think it should be okay. Let's say they can't come in May and it's gonna be pushed back. If someone would call me and say, okay, my contractors can't get here, at least I have some kind of idea, because someone's gonna look at me and say, hey, you made a ruling on January 14 and they're still there. So, but if I tell that person, no, Mr. Savoy got with me, we know that right now his contractors couldn't get in here, at least have some kind of idea that it's gonna be moved.
I
Yeah.
mean, my biggest concern is we're in January
Yeah.
and it's 30 degrees.
Yep.
Are we gonna have -5 in
Yep.
April?
Couple
Yeah,
Yeah,
weeks.
I think that's,
snow.
that's
If you
fine.
have nothing
Unless-
but, if you have
Unless you
nothing
wanted
but
to come
rain,
back to the Board of Appeals, but I don't think it would have to go.
well, that's what I'm trying to eliminate, so we don't have to come back on
Well,
the
if
same
Dave
subject
can give
down
him
the road.
an extension. I
Yes,
mean,
you're just talking about storage. We're not really,
We're
No.
not building anything.
not building
No.
anything.
As long as he
Yeah.
can, you have to give the guy a chance to move his
Right.
blocks too.
Is that fine with you? Ms. Boucher, that's what we'll do.
Yeah, as long as weather related. I
You're
can do an
the board.
extension, I
You
don't
can go
have a
ahead and
problem.
make your decision.
Okay. And the blocks will be removed when weather permits, 1st of May. Who knows, we may have a rainy spring and
They
won't be
can't
able
do
to work
anything
out there.
until June.
It will-
Yeah.
It's raining, we
We have
don't
to
know.
see when we get
Who
there.
knows?
I second that.
So all in favor?
All in favor?
Okay, the motion granted.
The motion carries.
Okay. Now, with that said, we learned tonight that those blocks will not be used as a fence or a border.
That is correct.
Okay, so as far as I understand, and I think if everybody understands, in 6 months from now, if you want to put a chain link fence, you still have to go through the whole thing again. Okay, according to the setbacks and so on and so forth.
Right. And my understanding is planning board is taking up the fence issue next week at their
Yep.
meeting.
But even though it goes to the planning board, and even though the planning board approves all of that, then it's gotta go to the Board of Selectmen, and then the Board of Selectmen's gotta take it to a town vote. Once it
Yeah.
gets passed to the town vote, which they can go with the, they may go right dead smack on the line, follow the state of Maine codes. Right now, you got a 10-foot setback, okay? If they go fall, we interpret it like some of the other rulings in Holton and Fort Kent and Presque Isle and Caribou that I read. You follow the state lines, even though there's a 10-foot setback, it can be put on the line with no setback in commercial zones by quoting the state of Maine. But that's gonna be up to the Board of Selectmen, whether they wanna go that route or not. And then it's gotta go to the people to pass it. So, and next town meeting is gonna be the next town meeting. That could be in June, August, September, October. That's when we do the whole budget thing. We do all of that at the same time. That's when it falls at. They're not gonna do a special town meeting for a fence. They're not gonna do that.
Obviously.
They won't even call that.
A motion to adjourn?
I second your motion
To adjourn?
to
Okay.
adjourn. Do you, do all in favor?
All
Meeting's adjourned.
right, that's it.